its sponsors. The host is solely responsible for the content.
On a mission given to me by Woody Shaw, Sunship, Dizzy, and Billy Higgins, dedicated to pursuing a piece of our cultural heritage through interviews with my jazz heroes, this is The Jake Feinberg Show. Welcome everybody inside the studios of KWFM 1330 The Star. This is The Jake Feinberg Show, and we're happy to have you all on board today. In today's world, freedom of expression is evident in new media, but lacking in improvisational music. The substance of improvisation comes from the soul and life experience and flat-out leadership. The leaders of the 50s, 60s, and 70s were so intellectually deft, so secure with themselves, and unafraid of the unknown that they created music for all of mankind, however jaded they might be. These leaders surrounded themselves with cats who could fit in and play improvisation, even if they were not the lead soloist. They came of age with these titans and became leaders in their own right. My guest today is one such musician. I first heard him playing on the album Joy Spring with the legendary guitarist Joe Pass, and soon discovered that that was just the tip of the iceberg. Oliver Nelson, Michael Barone, Shelly Manne, Richard Groove Holmes, Zoot Sims, and many, many more. He is a prolific composer and leader in his own right, starting with Strawberry Wine in the mid-'60s, to his most recent collaboration with flautist Holly Hoffman entitled Turn Signal. Mike Wofford, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey, Jake. It's great to be with you.
It's an honor to have you on the program, my man. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Turn Signal. I listened to it. It's a great album. It's a lot of original compositions, but also the stuff that you chose, some of the stuff that you chose had residual stuff from your past. You want to talk a little bit about the album?
Yeah, it's as I mentioned in the notes that accompany the album, the CD. I didn't actually set out to make it that kind of a focus as far as kind of including some things that had to do with people I'd worked with and people that I had admired and had been major influences on me. It just kind of developed that way. And when it was finally put together, I realized I had done just that very thing to a large extent. So that's fine. I feel good about that. There's one of the cuts, Soul Street, is dedicated to Oliver Nelson, who I was fortunate to know and work with quite a bit. And then the opening cut is a tribute to Horace Silver, who I've actually never met, but he was one of the first really important influences on me when I was a very young player, just starting out trying to learn how to do something. It's a kind of a combination of influences and past associations as well.
Yeah, Mike's notes, just reading here, made me crack up. The dipper for Horace Silver. Horace always manages to dip the listener into some grease. And the more that I talk to guys, to a man, they all say that Horace was really one of the most important members in music history because he was a trendsetter. And obviously you felt the same way about it. He's still alive today. And I just, tell me how he influenced you from a musical point of view when you were younger.
He was he's very influential as a pianist. Of course, his style is unmistakable. If you just hear a couple of bars on the radio, or you can't miss that it's Horace, and that's of course one of the primary marks of the truly great players in jazz on any instrument, is that uniqueness where there's no mistaking them for anyone else. It's a very hard thing to accomplish. There are a lot of great players who play wonderfully, but are not necessarily in that category. And also the players that influence a whole bunch of people that come up behind them and follow them. And Horace is certainly one of those. I just remember hearing him when I was still in high school on LPs, and it just knocked me out. His whole approach to the piano was completely different than anyone else's. He had his influences, of course, Bud Powell and people like that, but he really, as a very young guy, I think even in his early and mid-20s, had already developed a completely personal style that, and then, of course, his writing was so phenomenal, his composing and arranging when he was with the Jazz Messengers, and then when he went out on his own. He made those wonderful recordings with Miles Davis, also when he was still relatively unknown, and those were actually the first ones that really got my attention. Just amazing playing on those things.
It's untraditional. We have Mike Wofford on. Normally I don't go to music this early in the program, but I wanted to play a clip off this album. Dick Torsick, who you say here died too young and had a tremendous effect on me from an early age. And I just wanted to ask you, when you say early age, do you mean when you were in San Antonio or when you moved to San Diego?
No, I actually grew up in San Diego. I was born in San Antonio, but I discovered Dick Torsick on LPs, on the few things that he made. He's not very well recorded. He died so young. He was only 24 when he died in Europe, but he made one trio album on Pacific Jazz. Actually, he was on one side, and the other pianist, Russ Freeman, was on the other side. There were, you may remember that LP. I guess it's been re-released. I'm not sure if it's available on CD or not. But anyway, it was just an incredible kind of groundbreaking LP with Dick Torsick's compositions and incredible playing, and it really made an impression on me. It was completely unique stuff for its time, and it still holds up today. If you hear it. Actually, The Girl from Greenland, the cut you just played, I actually learned from a Chet Baker album that Dick was on. In fact, he was in Paris with Chet Baker when he died, and it always stuck with me. And I got to thinking about something for the latest CD, Turn Signal, and for some reason I thought maybe it's time for me to do it, so I did, and it's kind of a little tribute to Dick Torsick. He was an amazing talent.
One reason I like bringing on artists like Mike Wofford is because, I mean, you did a Jimmy Forrest tune, and then Torsick as well. It really is about, I mean, I think in some ways, because of your competency and your ability to form ideas and then, put the ideas in a sequential order that are beautiful, the ability to highlight those who could easily be forgotten. I mean, in some ways, like you said before, when you started writing the notes to this thing, you realized that a lot of it harken back to your past, and how much responsibility is the wrong word, but how gratifying is it to you to be able to harken up these names and educate future generations?
It's a wonderful feeling. I hope I'm able to accomplish a little bit of that in some small way. But it really is important. There have been so many wonderful players, some of whom are still with us, and many of whom are now gone. Who it's a cliche, unfortunately, to say, but it's really true. Did not receive the recognition they really should have for various reasons. There are different causes of that, as you know, Jake. But they didn't get the full appreciation. There were so many great players out here on the coast. For instance, Hampton Hawes, a wonderful piano player who was another major influence on me. I used to go hear him when I was still in high school, sneak into a club where he was working in L.A., The Hague, and hear him. I'm sure you're familiar with Hamp Hawes, and there were, great players like that who didn't really make the national or world forefront as far as their own names, but musicians know who they were, and,
oh, yeah.
And they were huge influences people that came later. So yeah, it's gratifying to be able to kind of pass that along a little bit. I've had a lot of luck and been fortunate to play with great people, and it's nice to be able to turn around and maybe pass a little of the same on, you know.
You know, it's one thing about that I wanted to ask you, you know, a guy who's still around, and I was about to interview him a couple months ago, and the person who's kind of taking care of him now recommended that I watch this documentary, is Howard Rumsey. And,
sure.
And you know, it seems to me you got an opportunity as a youngster, veritable youngster, to get to hone your chops and build your stage confidence at the Lighthouse quite a bit. And I was hoping you could talk and tell me if that was true, and your kind of experience and what the Lighthouse was like at that time, and whether the music was dancing music. Where was jazz or music at that time when you were just starting out at the Lighthouse?
Well, there was no dancing. It wasn't a dance club at all. It was strictly a listening room. It was a beach bar, basically, and it had just been kind of a beach beer bar. It was right on the sand, practically, in Hermosa Beach, which is just a little south of L.A. And Howard Rumsey talked the owner there into trying a jazz policy, and I think it started out on just maybe Sunday afternoons. I believe that's how it started, and it eventually, by the time I was old enough, I was still in high school when that was all going on, but when I was old enough to actually go in myself, it had become, it was 7 nights a week. Hard to imagine these days any club with that kind of a policy, but it was 7 days a week and all day Sunday. So it was really an amazing place for jazz, and the great players who came through there are just, you know, legendary. Stan Levy and Frank Rosolino and Conte Condoli, and you could go on and on, the great players that were there. Sonny Clark was one of my major influences on piano, and he was, when I first started going there myself as just a listener, he was the house pianist. I'm sure you've got some stuff there in your library of Sonny Clark. What an amazing guy he was. Among other things, he was, I think, a big influence on Bill Evans, who came later. So, but
you know, what I love about you, the modesty. Don't deflect off yourself. Tell me about your experience. Like, who were you playing with? Like, for instance, Strawberry Wine, John Guerin was on drums. Were you in a trio with him, or who were you playing with at the Lighthouse?
Yeah, we grew up together. We went to separate high schools, but we grew up about the same time. He was a couple of years younger than me, and in San Diego, we played around town with some of the young guys trying to learn how to play, and we both went to L.A. about the same time. Migrated from San Diego to live up there, and so we were working clubs and doing stuff. He I think his first main job was with Buddy DeFranco. He went on tour with Buddy DeFranco's band. But when I finally got a chance to record my first LP at that time on Discovery Records, I called John immediately, and I'm very proud of that album. You know, it's got a lot of good stuff on it, I think, even after all these years.
Well, it holds up over time. You know, just without getting too theoretical, you know, I'm not a musician, but, you know, I've talked to enough of them, been around enough of them. You know, from a compositional point of view, you know, you have ideas that bounce around in your head. How do you take those ideas and then try to put them into an order that comes out, you know, with some semblance of clarity or a beauty?
Oh, that's a tough one, Jake. I guess everybody I've talked to has a little different process. I don't sit down and try to force writing. Some people that works great for them. Some writers, arrangers, and composers can just sit down and make themselves do it every day, whether they come up with anything or not. I have to kind of wait until something kind of pops into my head, and I try to get it down as quickly as I can, and make something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I've never concentrated on composing and arranging nearly as much as I have playing. Playing has always really been my primary focus, but I've also tried my hand at writing and recorded quite a few things over the years of my own. And I've done a lot of arranging. I did a lot of arranging in L.A. For studio work and stuff like that. But that's about all I can tell you on that. I don't have any real formal process as far as arranging and writing. I think if I had been more focused on doing that rather than playing, I would have developed. I'd have a better answer for you.
Well, it's one of those things where maybe it's just left up to improvisation. I'm still that whole word in itself can make certain musicians very uncomfortable to take it out of a linear. If you don't play a standard and you're just going to play free improvisational music, where does that long solo come from? I mean, the girl from Greenland, for instance, you were dancing all over the piano, but you were doing it very methodically. I mean, there was no rush to you. How did you learn to pace yourself playing at a younger age, not to speed up too much? Because you have a way of covering the entire ivory, but not doing and saying what you need to say, but not saying it too fast.
I've tried to work on that over the years. I wasn't always successful when I was younger, and I still don't feel I always am. But I really have so many of the players that I have most admired over the years, Thelonious Monk, for instance, who was also one of my very first major influences, the ability to pick and choose and the use of space, and not just piano players, but Miles, for instance, the master of utilizing space and being as much about what you don't play as what you do play. And that's a very hard thing to develop, especially when you're younger. Of course, you want to play everything you know, and you put a lot of pressure on yourself often as a young player to play a whole lot more than is really good or necessary. It takes a lot of years to develop that kind of winnowing process, I guess you could say, where you pick and choose.
Yeah, well, I mean, and less is more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we go to break here, I wanted to ask you, you've done a lot of collaboration with Holly Hoffman, and I was just hoping for you to talk about how you guys connected on a musical level originally, because this is not the first time you guys have collaborated musically.
Well, it's interesting. You were talking about Strawberry Wine. It wasn't actually Strawberry Wine, but it was my second album. Mm-hmm. I had moved back to San Diego, where I now reside. Holly and I have been here for years, and when I left Los Angeles in the mid '70s, I happened to just be walking into one of the jazz clubs here in San Diego one night to hear somebody, and she was just coming out of the club and had apparently just moved here herself. And she said, "Are you Mike Wofford?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, one of my favorite songs that I actually transcribed from the LP and I play is a tune of yours from. It was my second album. The album was entitled "Summer Night," and in fact, and then it was reissued under another title, "Bird of Paradise."
Right.
But anyway, she that's how we met. Actually,
wow.
She had taken a tune off one of my LPs, and she's a marvelous flutist. And so we when she got an opportunity to record her first LP for Capri Records, who we still work for, Turn Signal is a Capri release. She called me to do it, and we worked together for about 15 years. Before we finally got married in 2000, but we had already worked together for years and years, and so that was kind of an unusual way to meet.
Well, we're going to talk a lot more. We got to go to a quick news break. Mike, hang tight. We got a lot more
Sure.
to do, okay?
Be happy to.
We'll be back on the other side of the break.
All right.
This is the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll be right back.
NBC News Radio, I'm Melissa Rayberger. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton has called her Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in an effort to get Russian help in stopping the violence in Syria. The Syrian violence spilled over into Lebanon today with pro- and anti-Syrian groups shooting it out on the streets. At least 7 people were killed and 22 others were wounded. A State Department official says Lavrov agreed with Clinton on the need to work together to end the violence in Syria. More than 1,200 firefighters continue to battle the nation's biggest wildfire in and around the Gila National Forest in southwestern New Mexico. Robert Caldwell says he and fellow firefighters are exhausted.
It can be grueling. It's long days, 16 hours, sometimes as much as 36 hours without sleep.
The fire has charred 354 square miles and is just 15% contained. While there was no immediate threat, residents there have been immersed in a thick haze of smoke for days. This is NBC News Radio.
Did you know you could earn a transfer discount just by switching your motorcycle policy over to Geico? And if you already insure your car with Geico, you could even get a multi-policy discount. I've always wondered what it's like to ride a motorcycle, to ride my steel horse across the land, fighting crime alongside a tall brunette, Francesca. Sorry, my mind went to a strange place there. Where was I? All the Geico motorcycle discounts. Right.
Call Geico or visit geico.com today to see how much our discounts could save you.
At Advance Auto Parts, we don't do anything just part way. We go full throttle. We don't just put parts on sale. Oh no, we flooded our store with deals on the products you need. Now save $2 on each Autolite Iridium spark plug you buy after mail-in rebate. A value up to $16. Just one of the unbeatable deals right now. Only at Advance Auto Parts. Yeah, let that soak in. Service is our best part. Advance Auto Parts. Void where prohibited. See store for details.
And now Geico presents 30 Seconds with Maxwell the Pig.
Hey everyone, I'm Maxwell, and my life is kind of awesome because whenever Geico wants to talk about their new mobile app, they're like, hey Maxwell, you feel like coming to the studio and talking about how the app lets you manage your policy, and get roadside help and even customize it with your favorite Geico character? And I'm like, maybe. Are there going to be snacks?
Everything you love about Geico, now mobile. Download the new Geico app today.
At Advance Auto Parts, we don't do anything just part way. We go full throttle. We don't just sell you some rags and a bucket. Oh no. Right now, we've got deals that will make your car shine. Buy 2, get 1 free on Armor All wipes. 2 for $10 on select Meguiar's products. And dozens more deals throughout the store. Yeah, that's dozens. With an S. And a Z, too, in case you're writing this down. Right now, at Advance Auto Parts. Service is our best part. Advance Auto Parts. See store for details.
Protect. You want to know that when you're insuring valuable goods, you have an agent you can trust. Craig Pretzinger is that agent. For auto, home, and life insurance, the Pretzinger Agency is Tucson's most honest and flexible insurance company. Have off-road vehicles or motorhomes? Pretzinger can cover that as well. Pretzinger Agency at 299-5810, located across the street from Sullivan Steakhouse on the southwest corner of River and Campbell. Trust, compassion, and service. The whole package at Pretzinger Agency. Call 299-5810 or text quote to 520-582-5150. 520-582-5150. Folks, this is Jake Feinberg. One of the first things I wanted to do when I moved to Tucson was find authentic Chinese cuisine. After a tip from the Chinese Student Association, I headed over to Badar Chinese Restaurant. Well, it's been 7 years, and I have never looked back. Located at 7321 East Broadway Boulevard, Badar has been a family-run operation since 1992. The award-winning chef produces succulent dishes from sizzling ginger chicken to salt and pepper shrimp. The thing that separates Badar from the rest is that the chef procures ancient oriental dishes with the exotic island flair of Taiwan. Most importantly, there are no gimmicks or razzle-dazzle at Badar. You won't find any flat-screen TVs or karaoke machines. Badar is a place to go enjoy good food and spend time with your family. It exudes peace and tranquility after a long week of work. So come down and check out Badar Chinese Restaurant. Hong Hao Chu. It's that good. Folks, this is Jake Feinberg. When it came time to decide where to buy my daughter a piano last year, the choice was easy. We got it at Hackenberg & Sons Piano Company. Located at 4333 East Broadway Boulevard, Hackenberg & Sons is Tucson's longest-running family-owned piano business. Run by three brothers and a son, they pride themselves on superior instruments and customer satisfaction. It's why they've been around so long. And it's why their pianos are used at the University of Arizona, Pima Community College, and many other prestigious institutions. So whether it's for your child, business, or yourself, when you buy a piano, make sure you go to Hackenberg & Sons. It'll be the beginning of a long-lasting partnership. For more information, visit them at hackenbergpiano.com. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Be a part of a new coalition with Jake Feinberg. The second half of my show starts right now. Ho, 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 and welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show. Not a moment to spare. Great piano player and a great guy. Mike Wofford, welcome back, my man.
Great to be with you, Jake.
That's good to be. I wanted to ask you, when I interviewed Jim Huart quite a while ago, early in my career, and this album that I first discovered you on was Joy Spring, which never even was released at the time. It came out on Blue Note in the 80s, and then the CD, somehow I got a CD copy of it. And Jim, and there was a live portion of that show that was done, I think Jim, if I remember correctly, he said it was done in kind of like a movie theater or some kind of hall. Could you talk about that experience? Is that?
Yeah, it was a movie theater in kind of downtown LA and that general area, as I remember. I think it was called the Encore, and we actually were opening for Les McCann's trio, who were huge. They had really a very, very popular trio in LA, and then eventually worldwide. Les went on to great things. At that point, he was still basically best known in L.A. Well, anyway, everyone was really waiting for Les, and they had no idea who we were. Joe didn't have any name at that point, and nor did any of the rest of us. So it was kind of a strange situation that we were kind of on the spot. But anyway, we Pacific Jazz recorded it. Dick Buck recorded the whole evening, and I think they also, they recorded Les McCann's portion too, and in fact that may have been the main thing they were going for. But they did get a very good recording of Joe Pass's quartet of that time, and I'm really proud to be on it because it was one of the very first recording projects I was ever on, and certainly the first live one. And Joe, I think it's some of the best Joe Pass on record. I really do.
I mean,
it was his first recording.
It literally, I mean, I think my daughters have hid the CDs or buried it under the dirt somewhere. I can't find it, but I swear to you, it was one of the first. It's such a sensitive and beautiful album, yet there's so much strength to it as well. And I figure the only way, I mean, now I essentially have gotten the two members of the rhythm section because, some of my more musical friends, a couple of them in particular, we what you just said is exactly the way we feel as well. It was one of the more really, underrated and important albums, and the way it's kind of evolved over the years, as far as never really being released and then coming out on a kind of a Blue Note and then eventually coming out on CD is really special. But, I said in my opening, I talked about these leaders that you were a leader as well at that time. But Joe did have his demons, I think one of the reasons he is such a beautiful player and a melodic player, so many things, and yet, these guys are human, and all the guys you were with were human, and some of them had really bad vices, and it took them down, and that's just the part of human nature. And
well, Joe had actually pretty much by the time I met him and we did that recording, Jake, that you're referring to, he had gone through rehab and was really pretty much starting a new life, and he was for the most part really fine after that. But he did have some rough early years, and that recording was actually kind of the first thing he did after he got out of rehab at the time, I remember.
He got out of a program called Synanon, which was very big in its day. he did an album on Pacific Jazz, Songs of Synanon, in the
Oh
facility.
yeah, that's right.
Which is really remarkable. And then so that was the first thing he did coming out of rehab, and that's good to know. I'm glad to know that he was clean from there on in. You know, I mean,
yeah, he really was. You know, it's interesting, that album too, because I think particularly since the CD release of it, I've had guitar players, young students and various guitar players, contact me from around the country and just ask me things about that recording. They were so, they're so taken with it. So
there's something magic. I'm telling you, Mike, I'm going to write a blog about it. There's something really magical about it, because I'll leave it at that. You know, another label, you brought up Pacific Jazz, and that's something we need to cover, but another unheralded label is VSOP, and I want to play a piece off of that. Again, keep in mind here, less is more, and just listen to Mike Wofford as an accompanist amidst this bravado.
Okay.
What a great big band, man. Live at Dante's, 1968. Michael.
Wow, you know, I didn't recognize it. I have that's the 68, class of 68?
Class of 68, exactly.
I'll have to check that out again. You know, I have that somewhere on my shelves, but I haven't listened to it for a while, and I didn't recognize it right away. But yeah, that's a great band. Mike Barone. Actually, Holly and I just went to see his newest version of that band about 2 weeks ago at the Lighthouse, of all things. How about that?
I mean, things are cyclical, and
his new band is even more killing. I mean, it's just, his writing has just gotten better and better and better, and it's really an incredible band. But I'm really happy that they came out with those recordings. I didn't even know they existed until they were released.
And it was just like all these cats, you included, Berghofer, and I'm going to leave people out, Condoli. I mean, to me...
it was a real who's who of L.A. in that period, you know, the late 60s.
I just, when I hear the way the horns are playing off each other and the vibrancy and the energy of it, how much was it of a reflection of the spirit of the times? The idea that we were really, you could really feel the progression. Music was actually progressing and in its own way moving society ahead as well. It just seemed there was so much vibrancy. I have no doubt that his new band is killing. I would love to see it. But, looking back at it, talk about your playing, for instance. It was, to me, it was rhythm, but yet you were also playing little colors inside the solos, which may have been hard for you because we were having a mix problem in here as well. But talk a little bit about how you fit into a big band setting, playing and getting your point across, but not overplaying and possibly hindering the actual performance.
Yeah, and by the way, that's I'm sure that's John Guerin on drums, who you mentioned earlier.
Oh, that's right. I love John.
He's also the drummer on that. Well, Mike was very loose. Mike Barone was very loose about